community heritage orchard and wildlife project in Quainton. And I'm going to go on and just get a little bit of background. I do fear maybe I'm going to be talking to the converted here, and that you all will know all about this, really, because you're all doing very similar things. But anyway, I thought I'd give a bit of background first. Right, is that not going to the next? That's it, right, yes. So I say I live in Quainton, which is North Buckinghamshire, north of Aylesbury, near Wadston. I joined BBOUT some 20 years ago when we moved from Surrey up to Buckinghamshire. So I'd been a member for all that time, but hadn't got involved in any particular work or projects until I retired in August 2019, and I became a volunteer at the BBOUT Reserve in Finemere Woods. Let me see, it's the next one. I've put a link here to it, so it'll open it up, maybe. No, it's not going to do it. It's a small mixed woodland, historic importance, and it's got a beautiful wildflower meadow as well. And apparently, when I looked it up this week, it has a nationally important population of Bechstein's bat, which was quite interesting. And they certainly have a lot of bat boxes around in the wood. Here's a few photographs of us. That's the work, one of our recent work parties where we cleared a scallop. I expect again most of you might know the principle of clearing scallops, where you clear all the growth, the saplings, the blackthorn and everything else, so that light can get to the ground, and the wildflowers benefit from that. This picture here is the bluebells in all their glory. It is certainly a wonderful place to be around May time. I think this was my very first working party where we raked a lot of grass. That was hard work. And this one is me at our Christmas party. That is when we have a bonfire and bake jacket potatoes and generally have a nice time. And jacket potatoes cooked in a bonfire are really very much better than ones cooked in the oven. So moving on to that, I then obviously had an interest in the wildlife and environmental protection in general, and within our own village, this has developed into something called the Community Heritage Orchard and Wildlife Project. It started with a project run by BBOUT called Hedgerow Havens. Don't ask me about the actual details of it, but I just know that my husband, who was on the parish council at the time, was invited by BBOUT, or the parish council was invited to nominate areas that could be greened up, have extra hedging put in, wildflowers and so on. And they came along and gave advice to the parish council and how to go about improving certain little neglected spots within the village. And one of the areas that the advisor from BBOUT, he was absolutely amazing, a guy called Marcus Militello, noticed was that we had this meadow that was behind our tennis court that was already quite a nice wildflower meadow, but it didn't have much variety in it, and that it could really do with being improved. So that's how it all started. So Marcus then came and advised the parish council on what we needed to do and how to go about improving this meadow. So one of the very first things we had to do was get rid of some of the thistles, or at least minimize the thistles as much as possible. So we've had a couple of groups of people coming out here and pulling thistles. One of the groups that's helped us, I'm not sure, I think they're in this picture here, came from the Aylesbury Environment, I can't remember, Aylesbury Conservation Group, I think that's what they're called. So we've called upon them to help us with this really backbreaking, tedious task. So what the other thing that Marcus, this is Marcus from BBOUT, did for us, our little group here, we took up the offer of wildflower and grass identification. So we had a training morning at Meadow Farm where they showed us how to go about identifying plants using books and materials and so on, and use their own meadow there where there's a wonderful selection of wildflowers. So we did that. I must be getting on for 2 years ago now. Then the next thing we had to do was add seed to our meadow once we'd got rid of the thistles. So this is a wildflower and grasses mix, which actually came, I think it might have come from the meadows at Meadow Farm. So you can see it's quite a dry mix of grass and so on. And then how it's spread is a very technical process where you stand in a row with handfuls of seed, and then you wave your arms around like a windmill, and you walk along. And we seeded our whole field by this process on a beautiful day, as you can see. It was quite good fun. Yeah. And then we had to wait, obviously, to see what happened with the seeding. I mean, last summer was its first season, and so with the drought and so on, it was a bit disappointing, I suppose. But I think they said it would take a good 3 or 4 years for us to really see a big improvement. And one thing we did see a lot of was yellow rattle, which is really good news, because yellow rattle helps to take, is it the nitrogen out of the grass? It weakens the grass growing to allow then the wildflowers to flourish. So part of this orchard, this meadow really was a big area, and it lent itself very much to providing an area for a community orchard. And one of the ladies from the village who was on the parish council had noticed information about something called the Pocket Parks Project, and she also read about something in a gardening magazine called the Ring of Blossom. And she got thinking about all of this and how we could use or improve the meadow and have this orchard in it. And it also then linked into the Queen's Jubilee Plant a Tree project. And she was very much the driving force behind this, getting money together, getting expert advice on how to go about creating our orchard. We didn't have any fruit trees there at all. There was a little copse, but nothing else very much. So the project began summer 2021 in the creating the orchard. So we very fortunately had a local fruit tree expert living in the village who has apparently got orchards down in Somerset, but he did know a lot about local heritage fruit trees. We also have got a heritage fruit tree supplier not far away, Burnwood Trees, I think they're called. So they also were very helpful. Claire, so my neighbour and colleague, applied for local grants and did very well. I think it was something called Wild Aylesbury. We also had some funding from the Woodland Trust for extra hedging. And the Hadnam and Waddesdon Community Board have also provided funding and been very helpful. So having got the layout decided of the orchard and some of the trees planted, we've then had to go on and try and continue with some fundraising events. We linked in with National Apple Day, and somebody came along with a apple crushing juice making machine, and we sold the apple. Everybody in the village who got apples growing in the garden brought their apples along, and it was made into fruit juice, and then people bought the juice. And then using good old Facebook, there was a plea put out for volunteers to come and dig the holes to actually plant the trees. And we have had quite a good, as people have said, there's a key number of people, or core number of people rather, who are there all the time, only 4, 5, 6 perhaps. But when it comes to it, a number of other people will turn up. So here we are. This is actually when we planted our first tree, which we linked into an event that was organised by Marcus from Bebout. He had run this project called Hedgerow Havens, and we had an event to celebrate the completion of that project when it had finished, and that involved work throughout the area. I don't know the details of it, but a lot of these people were from other local community environmental groups. So here we are planting our first tree. And then we've gone on and we've added other things in, not just fruit trees. This is a black poplar. We have a few round here which apparently are relatively scarce. And this one, these little girls, it was in their front garden as a sapling in the wrong place. So it was moved and planted as part of the Queen's Green Canopy. What have we got next? Oh, here we are. Here's some more tree planting. So as you can see, it's quite a large area. Got a tennis court over here. There's a skate park in the background over there. And then there's this space over here, which is the meadow, and then our orchard. And then to make the orchard grow, we had a wassail ceremony where you had the Apple King come along to bless the orchard with cider and bread, and you have to make a lot of noise to wake up the spirits, the fruit tree spirits, to ensure a good harvest in the coming season. So this was our second wassail. We had it about 2 weeks ago. We had the Ellswick Morris men, and we had mulled cider and mulled fruit juice and biscuits and things, and we sang the wassail song, and it was a really lovely event, and everyone really enjoyed themselves. And so we try and get into the spirit of the thing with some nice decorated hats. That's right. So having got our orchard up and running and meadow planted, we need to decide how successful is it. What Marcus and Bebout showed us was how to do a baseline assessment and how to do an annual survey of flowers and grasses so that we can see how things are developing in years to come. And that's been quite interesting. So we really, although it was a bad year last year, we did see some actual positive improvement in the number of species of wildflowers. And we're not so good on grasses yet. I think flowers are a little bit easier to identify, actually. And so we do a grid and put it onto a chart, and you score things, and it comes up with some conclusion at the end of it, how we're doing. But in addition to that, I got myself involved in something called a bee walk. Some of you might know about this. A friend of mine who's very keen on bees and is a member of the bee conservation organisation told me all about how you can do a monthly bee walk. You pick about a mile route that you do each month about the same time of the day, and you register, or you carry out a survey, see how many species of bumblebee, this is just for bumblebees, that you see, and then you can enter it on their website, and that collects the data. It's sort of a citizen science project. It's been running for many years, but this is the first year I've been involved with it. And I thought, well, that might be really useful as well for us to see how things might be changing with the bees and whether we're going to attract a wider range of bees to our orchard. So I've really enjoyed doing that. It makes you really look at things in detail, and the Bee Conservation Organisation had some amazing resources on their website to help you with identification. They had some Zoom sessions as well, and it's really been a fantastic that's where we are. Looking forward very much to the spring. Like everybody else has said, what we need is momentum to keep us going, and I think it was really, really helpful when we had the experts with us, people from Bebout, to come along and give us regular guidance get actively involved with some of the thistle pulling and so on. And so I think perhaps that's going to be difficult without that involvement now, for the lack of the professional input. And I really appreciate finding out if we can get some more assistance from BBOUT. I think Claire, who ran this project, is speaking to Lily, I can't remember what Lily's name is, about a meeting fairly soon to see where we can go from here. So that's really where we are. I hope you found that interesting or helpful if you've got other projects underway. So if I can answer any questions, I'd be welcome. You'd be welcome to see if I can help. So there we are.